Hi, YouTube. It's me again. I'm in another one of my football practice jerseys. There might even be one more to go after this. So, um, stay tuned for the showcase of all the sporting gear. Anyways, like I said, I've, my last few videos of this nature have all been kind of in quick succession because, I've just been setting them up and knocking them down. And then last week I had off, as you may know if you listen to any of my gameplay videos. And I just continued to chew through stuff. I was watching a lot of stuff last week, actually. I mean, I played a lot of games, I read a lot of my books and stuff, but I found a new show that I have fallen for very hard, and I can't stop watching it. It's got several seasons, but they're shorter seasons, so I should be through that sometime in the near future, but that's just a little besides. That has nothing to do with this particular video, but this time we've got a little bit of everything, and we're going to start it off with the lone book I did get completed, even though I'm close on a couple other ones. This was the only one I got actually fully read in time for this video. It is The Making of the Lost World. So, released in 1997 along with the movie. This book, it's the same as the one for The Making of Jurassic Park. It chronicles the entire making of the movie, from pre-production to post-production, all the casting stuff, all the effects stuff, how everything came together. And it was funny because Jurassic Park laid the groundwork for creating these dinosaurs, bringing them to life so realistically on screen. But in that original Jurassic Park movie, there's not that many shots where there's multiple dinosaurs in the frame, especially with multiple dinosaurs interacting closely together. Really, at the end when the T-Rex saves them in the visitor center and the raptors attack it, that's one where they're closely engaged. But really, it's a lot of single shots in that movie, whereas The Lost World, it totally rewrote, how they're making a Jurassic Park movie. There was so many scenes with not just a few multiple dinosaurs, but scores of dinosaurs interacting with other dinosaurs, with humans, with vehicles and machinery. The movie, right in this book, like they're like, yeah, we wanted Jurassic Park to be amazing, and it was. It broke new ground. It captured audiences. It was a masterpiece. And they're like, we don't just want to make another Jurassic Park and maintain that level. We want to take what we learned in that first movie, what we accomplished in that first movie, and make it next fucking level. And that is exactly what they did. I feel like a lot of people who watch the Jurassic Park movies and stuff don't have enough respect for The Lost World. I have to say the original Jurassic Park is my favorite movie because it was the one that just made you go, what the fuck did they just produce here, right? But The Lost World, in my opinion, they took Jurassic Park and they took it to here, with the story, the equipment in the film, those really cool vehicles, the trailer where their lab was, multiple T-Rexes, tossing Eddie Carr up into the air and then biting him in half, like, just fucking nuts. New dinosaurs, even more dinosaurs. Even the little compies were amazing. And when you saw how they made these little puppets of them and how they had to fit all this machinery inside of them and make them work when they're so little and it's so minute, just amazing to see how they did it. And everything about this movie, the casting, the actors, like, they got fantastic actors. They got Jeff Goldblum back, but then they added fucking Vince Vaughn and Julianne Moore. Like, just outstanding movie. And reading through this book, it just reinforces how amazing it is when you see something like this brought to screen. Like, it blows my mind to begin with, and then you read about how they actually do it and you're like, holy shit, like, I am so fucking stupid. It's unbelievable when you hear what other people oh my god, other people are capable of, right? So movie magic has always really fascinated me. And when you come to movies of this nature where they just bring things to screen that you never thought you'd ever see in your life, it just takes it to level 11, blows everything right out of the water. So I had a lot of fun reading through that book. At the end of the book, they had an interview with Steven Spielberg, which was fun to read through. Just a quick one to get his thoughts on the Lost World and some other stuff. And at the end of the first book for Jurassic Park, I forgot to mention when I reviewed that one, they had 20 or 30 pages worth of like original storyboards when they storyboard the whole story, and those little images they use to kind of direct the flow of okay, this is what's going to be happening in this scene, so this is how we should frame it, and I think a lot of things spawn from those storyboards in terms of how they're going to present the movie. And then sometimes they'll discover some things don't work, some things do. Oh, this change might make it even better, but when you see how much work goes into these things, it's just blows your mind. So awesome book. I don't know if they made one for Jurassic Park 3. I doubt it, but I'm gonna check, and if they do, I'm gonna get it. Next up, a couple movies. Been wanting to see this one for a while. Five Nights at Freddy's. So as you may or may not know, some of my gameplay footage a while back, several months ago, I played the first and second games in the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise. There's apparently tons of games. It's a really weird game. You don't move around. You just kind of manage electricity power, close doors, use lights to see what's going on, to defend yourself against these mechanical animatronic freaks of nature that are coming to get you. So, and I was like, you probably know what Five Nights at Freddy is, and I was like, what the hell? What kind of story are they gonna have for a movie? Like, how are they gonna make this? Just like when I heard they were making a movie for Gran Turismo, I'm like, what the fuck? Is this just gonna be watching cars go around a million times? But that's why sometimes I want to, even if I'm not that interested in a story, it's like sometimes you just want to see what the hell are they going to do? How are they going to make a movie out of this story, right? So this one I actually wanted to see, make no mistake, but I was very curious to see what they did. So the way they made it happen was the story focuses on a guy named Mike Schmidt. He's a young guy, and it's probably his 20s maybe. And when he was a young child, when his family was at a campground or something like that, he was left in charge of his brother while his parents were making dinner or something like that, cooking dinner. And he witnessed his brother get abducted by some guy and taken away in a car, and his brother Garrett was never found again. So he's basically lived a whole life of trauma, thinking of this moment, missing his brother, wanting him back, and he's been obsessed with finding out who took him and getting his vengeance, sort of thing. So, but his life has fallen apart even more in the meantime. His mom died, I believe, and then his dad left. I don't think his dad died, but I think he left because he couldn't handle not having his wife around, and the kids were too much, so he left. So Mike has basically been left in charge of taking care of his younger sister, Abby, who is a lot younger than him. She's just a kid. And she's very quiet. All she does is draw pictures and standoffish towards him, and it's very frustrating for him. And he has all these nightmares all the time, and he's actually trying a method of some sort of dream. It's almost like dream surfing or something like that. He takes these pills that kind of put him to sleep and make him lucid or whatever, and he goes into his dreams to find any clue of that memory of his brother being taken away, to find any little clue that would help lead him to who his abductors were. So but in the meantime, with all this shit going on in his life, he can't keep a job. He's always tired because of this dream stuff. He is and being basically a kid himself and taking care of another kid is stressful enough. So he's going through all these troubles, and then one day he's working his current job. He's working as a security guard at a mall, and he sees an exchange between a young kid and an older man. And the guy is the kid's father, but they're just having some sort of argument, and the guy kind of drags his kid away, and Mike automatically assumes, oh, he's fucking taking him, right? So then he rushes to the rescue and just beats the shit out of this guy in a fountain in front of his own kid, right? so then he's fired from his job, and he's basically unhireable, right? So he goes to some sort of career counselor guy, a real shady looking dude who's played by I can't remember his name. This guy's amazing. He played Shaggy in the Scooby-Doo movies, and he was one of the killers in the original Scream movie. He's awesome. I forget his name. Matthew Lillard. And so this guy's like, well, I don't know, Mike, what I can do for you. He says, I do have one job for you. It's a security guard at this kind of place. And Mike's like, I can't do nights. I don't do nights because of his dreaming thing, right? And he's like, sorry, it's nights. And so Mike leaves, but then he gets word that his Aunt Jane, who's a real bitch, is trying to take custody of Abby from Mike, and is totally using the fact that the guy can't keep a job, whatever, against him. So he's like, fuck, I gotta get a job. So he goes back to this guy and he's like, I'll take the job. The job ends up being a night security guard at an abandoned pizza place called Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. So just like a Chuck E. Cheese, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza was a delight to kids back in the day when they would go into this big building where there's lots of arcade machines and games to play. And most importantly, Freddy Fazbear and his gang of animatronic animals that would, play songs and fuel the kids' imagination, right? But the place has been abandoned. The owner is a little eccentric and he doesn't want to tear it down. So basically, Mike's job during the night is just to keep people out. And the reason to keep people out is because these animatronic puppets come alive and they will rip your face off, sort of thing. So at first he goes and nothing really happens. But then his Aunt Jane confers with some people that have been trying to get in with Mike. The girl that babysits Abby all the time, I forget her name, is one of these people that's reporting to his aunt, and they're like, yeah, he's working at this pizzeria now at night. If we sabotage it and whatever and get him fired, then it'll be easier for you to get custody of Abby. So they enact this plan, and these people go to the pizzeria early in the morning, just after Mike has left and locked up, and they ransack the place. But Freddy Fazbear and his friends, with it, Chica, Foxy, I can't remember the other ones, Bonnie, and maybe one more. They tear these people apart. They rip the one girl right in half. Like, they're just savages, right? So in the meantime, Mike has met a cop named Vanessa, a really hot chick, who shows up at the pizzeria one night and kind of gives him some cryptic advice. She seems really nice. But she's kind of being a little weird, and he's like what's going on here, like, sort of thing. So then the next morning, after these bodies are found, she's like, you can't even, Mike, you gotta lock up properly. Like, these guys got in and caused a ruckus, and they don't find the bodies yet. But she's able to kind of, I think, fudge the police reports so he keeps his job. So he ends up getting intertwined with this Vanessa girl who keeps on giving more cryptic kind of comments. And with his babysitter now dead, he's like, oh, I gotta take Abby to work with me one night. So she's like, oh, I can't wait. So she's with him the one night, and she's sleeping, and she hears some noises. She gets up and she goes out, and Freddy Fazbear and all of his friends are like loving this little girl, and they're playing with her. And Mike, of course, jumps to conclusions and thinks they're gonna fucking kill her. So he charges in to try and save the day, but is kind of held back and is like, no, things are fine here. These things love her and whatever. So they kind of, Mike, Vanessa, Abby, and all the animatronic animals kind of have some time, some nights where everybody's happy and they're all playing together and whatever. But as things proceed, Mike starts to have some success in Dreamland and starts noticing these 5 or 6 kids, I think, that keep showing up in his dream. And he's trying to talk to them, and they always seem to run away, and he can't get a hold of them. Eventually he discovers, spoiler alert, that these 5 kids were murdered back in the 80s at Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. And Vanessa knew about this, and they are now actually, the ghosts of these children are inhabiting the animatronic animals. That's what's going on. And these kids have taken a liking to Abby. They want Abby for their very own. So naturally, they want to kill her and bring her ghost to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. So then all the love and joy of Abby and Mike and Vanessa hanging out with these animatronic animals becomes a life and death struggle. And Mike has got to put his nose to the grindstone and make sure his little sister doesn't get offed by these freaks of nature, right? And some of it has to do with physically fighting them and with Vanessa helping him, but also figuring things out in dreamland and whatever. So in the end, we see who the true culprit is behind the whole thing in the original murders of these kids back in the 80s, sort of thing. And then everything is more or less resolved in the end. I'm not going to give you the ending just in case, but I really like the movie. The game is such a neat idea. I don't think I could play all of them in the series because it's very nerve-wracking, and there's not a lot of action, right? It's just a lot of sitting there and waiting for that clock to tick and trying to fend off all these fucking things, and getting through the night and moving on to the next one. I can't necessarily play a lot of those games, you know. I enjoyed playing the first two, but I think that's all I really need to do. Unless I find the other ones super cheap or whatever, I might try them. But yeah, I think the first two are good enough for me, at least for now. But I thought they did a really good job with the movie. It good casting, good story, a good little twist on it with the ghost children and stuff like that. And just the pizzeria, they did a really good job with making that pizzeria really neat and run down with a lot of cool stuff in it, and then making Freddy and all of his companions really cool characters, and they looked really neat and everything. They really did a good job with this movie. I quite enjoyed it. Next up, The Marvels. I bit the bullet and bought it despite the terrible reviews. And you know what, for my perception of the movie going into it, from everything I'd heard, I was prepared to be very disappointed. And no, it wasn't great, but it wasn't as terrible as I was being led to believe, sort of thing. So basically the story is, after Captain Marvel destroyed the Supreme Intelligence on the Kree homeworld, it sent that planet into a tailspin of decay. You know, the water dried up, the sun went away, the planet was dying, and the Kree would eventually die with it, right? So the Kree are pissed at Captain Marvel, and one of their, I don't know if she's their leader or whatever, but this girl, I forget her name, she goes looking for some powerful artifacts. I forget the name of it, but it's one of those wrist gauntlets, you know, that like armor that just goes on your forearm, and they have magical powers. There's two of them. She only finds one, but basically they're able to open up wormholes in the cosmic network, so they can open up a wormhole and travel from here to there or whatever. But in doing so, she causes some instabilities in it, and Captain Marvel is notified by Nick Fury. He's on the Saber space station, and they notice this wormhole open up, and he's like, "What's going on? Anything in your neck of the woods?" And she's like, "No." And so Maria Rambeau, her daughter Monica, I think, is now working for Nick Fury, and she has developed superpowers as well. This ability to kind of she can kind of make herself, what can she do? She can energy manipulation. I can't remember what it is, but she has her own superpower now. And so she goes to investigate the wormhole by the Saber space station, and Captain Marvel goes to investigate another one. And in the process of investigating these, they end up using their powers at the same time and end up switching places. And then Kamala Khan, back on Earth, has the other wrist brace that matches the one that this Kree woman found, and she's kind of pulled into this whole thing too. So whenever Kamala, who's Miss Marvel, Monica Rambeau, who doesn't have a code name, and then Captain Marvel, whenever they use their powers at the same time, simultaneously with each other, they all start switching places. So they're trying to figure out what the hell's going on, and they're running into Kree and whatever. And during all these battles, they start switching places with each other, and they're like, "What the fuck is going on?" And Kamala Khan's home back home is being ransacked by some Kree as well. So eventually they have to figure all this stuff out, and they figure that this girl of the Kree is keying in on all the important parts of Captain Marvel's kind of past. So she's going to worlds that Captain Marvel has any sort of affiliation with or whatever, and wreaking havoc. So she goes to this one world, I forget the name, where Captain Marvel relocated a bunch of what's their name, Skrull refugees, and so this girl from the Kree shows up there and starts to doom the planet. So they have to evacuate. Lots of people get killed, and then eventually they figure she's going to this water world where Captain Marvel is actually married to the prince there out of convenience, and she wants to use this world to use the wormholes to transport water back to the Kree homeworld, and they want to revive the Kree homeworld by doing so. But at the same time, they're going to doom this other world, right? So it's basically the rest of the movie is the three heroines trying to defuse this situation with the Kree and stop all these worlds from dying. And of course, Captain Marvel, seeing what she's done, also wants to help the Kree. So it's kind of a bunch of little, a bunch of action sequences that see this kind of movie wrap up. And I'm not going to give you any spoilers in case you want to watch it if you already haven't. But my buddy Simon and I talk about this with where Marvel has gone. Marvel saturated the market with all of their movies, but it was good at first. They had so many movies, they were normal, they all tied into each other. At some point along the way, Marvel just thought, we'll make every fucking Marvel movie a comedy from now on. And that's not a bad thing, but only in small doses. There's only certain franchises and certain characters that are going to have that ability to mix a good action superhero movie with a good comedy. The Guardians of the Galaxy were built for that, and those movies are fantastic. Deadpool, built for that, fantastic. Then they got into making Thor, who was a very serious character and whatever. All of a sudden in that third Thor movie, he's a fucking stand-up comedian, right? Like, and in this one, like Simon and I were talking, like when the Kree were attacking Kamala Khan's home on Earth, and her whole family was there, and there's these warriors there trying to kill them all. They're kind of like laughing and getting in on the action and trying to fight them. It's this old woman and old man and her brother who's kind of useless. And that's not realistic. Like, you get a couple fucking aliens, warriors, ransack your home, and you're like, fuck, let's get out of here. Like, I'm terrified. Like, but it's all everything's kind of jokey and funny, and that makes it unrealistic in certain situations like this. These normal humans joking around as they try and beat up two people that could easily take them all out if they wanted to, right? So that's where things have really gotten out of hand with Marvel. It's like, just keep the comedy with Guardians and Deadpool and any other weird characters or franchises that may come up that are like that naturally, and keep the other ones more serious. That just kind of, the credibility kind of seeps out of the movie when you see a scene like that where everybody's just joking around when they're normal people in a mortal death situation, right? So that's kind of our main problem with them. But otherwise, the effects, the action, like, everything's great. And in this one, all the fucking cats that were in it, all the cat monster tentacle things, oh my god, it was awesome, because I love cats. So when you see billions of them on the screen, it's pretty fantastic. So for all the bad hype about this movie that I heard, I was going into it thinking, okay, this is going to be a complete piece of shit. It wasn't that bad. It's still not a great movie, but it could have been a good movie if they just treated some of those scenes properly and made it more realistic. I had no problem with Brie Larson's performance. I think she's good as Captain Marvel. I don't know about her whole woke agenda outside of the movies. Haven't really seen it inside the movies yet, at least that I've noticed. And I don't know how much to believe, because you hear a lot of stuff, right? But I've always liked Brie Larson since I first saw her in Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Or Saves the World, or is it Versus? I can't remember. And I really enjoyed her in that. But so you never know how much to believe about a person, because some people hate her, some people love her, and of course they're going to comment on how good she is or how bad she is, and you don't know exactly what to believe, because you don't know this person, right? So I choose to still like Brie Larson and think she's a good actress, and that she is a good Captain Marvel, but who knows? But anyways, not a total piece of shit, the Marvels. So take that for what it's worth. Next up, season 2 of Star Wars Visions. Meh. 9 episodes. Now, in the first season of Visions, it was all the little shorts were done by Japanese studios. In this one, it's all over the place. There's the U.S., the U.K., I think France is in there, and maybe Turkey or something like that. They're all over the board. There's a bunch of different countries involved in producing these shorts. So if you don't know what Star Wars Visions is, it's just really short stories based in the Star Wars universe, but not necessarily canon or involving all characters that, you know, like in that first season, there was one that like the Star Wars guy was a Ronin. It was a complete samurai story, right? So something a little different. So in this one, again, 9 stories that are kind of all over the place, and not only the stories, but the animation. Like every episode of these 9 episodes all had a really distinct, different style from each other, and they were all, of course, like some better than others, but all episodes were really good and creative and feature some really cool sequences. My 3 favorites by far. There was one on this planet, I can't remember the name, but the Imperials moved in, as they do, raped the land, took all the water, and basically left the population to, you know, die, and, you know, as the Empire does. And there's these 2 sisters. I can't remember what species they are or what race, what type of alien they are, but they are kind of, I don't know if they're the last survivors on the planet, but they're the only 2 people we can see in this area, and they are running out of water. So the older sister goes to this Imperial facility and sneaks in and is filling up her pack with water or whatever. And then the younger sister, who wanted to come help, and she's like, no, it's too dangerous. But she ends up coming anyway, and then they end up getting discovered by the imps. And so then it's just this big, kind of long battle and race for them to escape this facility with their lives and their water, and so they can continue to survive. But in the end, they get the drop on the imps, and they find a way to kind of tear the facility apart and end this Imperial presence in this region, at least temporarily anyways, and they fight an ATST along the way. It was really cool episode. I really enjoyed it. My favorite one was the next one that came right after this one, and it takes place on Chandrila, and Wedge Antilles is in it, and he's like, yeah, we're hosting the annual family race today, blah blah blah. So it's basically like mothers, daughters, fathers, sons competing in this race that they have every year by the flight school. And I don't know if whoever wins it wins a big prize or whatever, but everybody gets excited about this race. And so there's this young Twi'lek girl who's at the academy, the flight academy, but her mother is very embarrassing to her, as is her mother's ship. So she's like just like trying to keep the family race under the radar so her mom doesn't, you know, go, oh, we should go in it. But events unfold and they end up going in it, and during the race, like there's this one mother-daughter duo who basically are like Imperials. Like they're just dicks, right? And they're always they're cheating. They're like Sebulba in the pod race, right? Like just cheating and bullying. And these 2 girls, the young girls, are rivals. So they end up in the race. During the journey, like the daughter ends up like spazzing on her mom, saying, you're so embarrassing, blah 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 blah. And so there's this kind of like heartfelt moment where the daughter, you know, kind of spurs her mom, but then they make up, and then they end up winning the race. And it was a really fun, lighthearted episode. And my favorite thing about it was that it was done in that same style of animation as the Wallace and Gromit movies and stuff like that. So it was that kind of look, which was really cool. It was a really neat look for a Star Wars story, and especially for a more lighthearted, kind of funny one, right? So yeah, I really enjoyed that one. And then the other one I really liked was again a family unit. So a young girl and her older brother are on this kind of train that's out in these like kind of desert wastes, and she's force sensitive because she after they have a conversation and he's going to get some drinks or something like that, she uses the force to take a flute off her brother's belt loop, and some of the passengers on the train notice this, and they're like, oh. So these characters inform the Imperials that, oh, we got a Jedi, a Force sensitive on this train, right? So the Imperials show up, and at the same time, the train conductors are like, oh shit, we better speed this thing up. We're going through bandit territory, right? So they've got bandits, they got Imperials, and it's these two kids on this train trying to survive and escape somehow these two different threats that are coming their way, right? Now the bandits are coming for everybody, but the Imperials specifically for them. So it's just kind of this experience on the train for these two kids. It's like Bullet Train, Star Wars style, right? Not quite as violent or funny, but still a good story. One of my 3 favorite on this collection. So I haven't really researched or heard yet if they plan on doing a season 3 for Visions, but I kind of hope they do, because it's nice to see something so different and fresh that doesn't have to follow the canon of Star Wars, right? It's just people can just do whatever the hell they want, and in doing so, they've come up with some really, really neat stuff. So I do enjoy. And it's nice that they're shorts too, because when you're old and you're watching TV and you fall asleep within 5 minutes, well, fuck, the episodes are only 5-10 minutes anyway. So beautiful. More shorts, please. Last up for the PS5, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. You can't not have noticed, if you watch my channel, that I've posted tons of gameplay sessions on this game, because it is a massive, massive game in size and scope. Yeah, I forgot to say, like, the 2 movies, The Marvels and Five Nights at Freddy's, were all 2023 productions. Visions was also 2023. This one comes a little earlier. This was 2020, and I'm assuming it was one of the launch titles for the PS5, because when we bought our machine, this is the game that came with it. I've never been interested in the Assassin's Creed franchise, but since this came with the console, I'm like, well, I'm gonna fucking play it, and we'll see what Assassin's Creed is all about, right? So the story in this one, it's a weird game. You control a Viking. You can either pick a guy or a girl. I picked the girl. Her name is Ivor, and she's adopted into this family. Her brother is a guy named Sigurd. They are in Norway, and their father has kind of given control of his territories to this invading king or whatever, and Sigurd and Ivor are pretty pissed off. They said, like, you're such a bitch, like, we should have fought, like, this is our land, this is our whatever, we keep it, we rule it, and you're just letting this clown come in and take it from you with no fight. So they're disgusted, and they're like, we're fucking out of here, we're going to England, we're gonna do our own thing. So they travel to England. So once you get to England, your job as Eivor is to basically go across the land. There's all these different territories. Make alliances with the people that rule these territories, and basically make all of England your home and friendly to you. You have allies everywhere. You have nothing to worry about. So as you're out doing this, there's all these side quests where you obtain money and armor and artifacts and stuff, and it all helps add to your XP. And when you get XP, you get skill points, so you can upgrade Ivor's gear and weapons and her abilities and her skills. But there's also a kind of more of a story to it, where she meets up with these guys that work for a group called the Hidden Ones, which is an early incarnation of the Assassin's Guild that all these assassins in these Assassin's Creed games are from. And in this game, you're working against the Order of the Ancients, I think they're called, if I remember correctly, which is basically an early incarnation of the Knights Templar. So that the assassins want freedom for everybody, and nobody lording over them, sort of thing. Whereas, oh shit, the Templars, or the Ancient Ones, the early incarnation of the Templars, are more control through force, right? Freedom for everybody, but we're in charge, sort of thing. So you have these two. Ivor lines up with the Hidden Ones and goes up against these Ancient Ones. So that's kind of the ongoing battle between these two factions, and you've got to search out all the members of this order and kill them to kind of free the land. And as you're doing all this, of course, you're doing other side missions that bring these alliances and all these territories under your control. So as you go through the game, you'll start. You have a big map of England, and all the treasures and artifacts and stuff will appear on it when you're near them and whatever. So as you go through the game, as you gain them and fight battles and obtain the treasures, everything will start disappearing from the map. And when you gain territories, it'll become, there will be a stamp on it, a little statue that shows that it's done, it's yours now. And this all leads to kind of the final confrontation in the game. But that's not all. It's really weird. So it's actually also a current time game. So there's something is in the year 2020 or whatever this game was made. There's some sort of phenomenon is manipulating the Earth's magnetic forces and strengthening them, which could bring about doom for the Earth. So this girl named Layla, along with her two co-workers or co-colleagues, I don't know what the hell exactly they do, but they end up sending Layla into this machine called the Animus to go and basically play as Ivor and obtain all her memories, because they think something is linked to this magnetic field problem with something from Ivor's past. So basically, once they get in there and Layla plays as Ivor and goes through this whole experience, gets the whole story, they figure out what is behind this magnetic field problem on Earth, and they have to kind of deal with it. She has to deal with it kind of within the Animus in a more virtual world. And I'm not going to give too much away, but yeah, so it's basically this old, and a lot of this is true to life, like a lot of these places and people and stuff that you'll meet in the game. I did a little bit of research, not a lot, but yeah, a lot of this game is based on true events that happened in history when the Vikings came to England and stuff. So it's kind of neat. So it's basically, you're playing this old historical kind of timeline that happened, but there's this current timeline, a more unrealistic, more kind of mystical kind of thing going on at the same time, that serves as the framework of telling this story, this old story in the game. So it's kind of confusing when you kind of look at it overall, but it's also a really neat story. It's really creative, it's really different, and I enjoyed playing it. Now, I spent 200-ish hours on this game. I was playing it for months and months and months. Every weekend morning, Saturday, Sunday mornings, I'd at least do, 3, maybe 3.5 hours of gameplay each weekend morning, for many months, and it took me a long time to beat it, but I did, and it was so nice to be done that game. Even though I had a ton of fun playing it, it was so nice to be done. When something kind of takes over your life like that, right? Sometimes you just want to fucking get it done. So would I buy another Assassin's Creed game? No. Simply because I don't like games that are that long. I don't mind games that are a little bit longer. Like, for a big open world game like Assassin's Creed, I find the Spider-Man games are the perfect length. It's got a really cool long story to it, or long enough story to it, and then it's got a lot of open world stuff you can also do, but a manageable amount, enough that you're going to enjoy playing through this game. You're going to get a lot out of it. You're going to get your value out of this game because you're going to be playing it for a while, but it's not going to soak up so much of your life, right? Whereas Assassin's Creed just kept going and going and going. Not that that's a bad thing. Some people might like that, but that's not my jam. I like medium. I like short games as long as they're good, but more I like a medium-ish game, sometimes into medium long, as long as it's not too long, right? So Assassin's Creed was just a little bit too much for me in terms of the time I needed to invest in it. But overall, great looking game, great controlling game. It had some little things here and there, but usually that's because you're in an intense battle and stuff, and you're just freaking out, and you can't necessarily get what you want done because it's so hard. Not necessarily that the game doesn't control that well, but great looking game, great, well thought out game. You think of all the different little storylines that came along in this game, all the little side quests, all the terrain, and it's amazing how games like this are produced because there's so much that goes into it. It's really something else to play through something like this because it's so extensive. So, like I said, that's not my jam, but I do appreciate just how amazing it is that something like that is brought to us on one little disc sort of thing, right? So it's pretty impressive. So now I've already got one of my next 5 things done for my next video. I will keep working on it. I got another coming up really shortly, so I'm sure soon enough I'll be back in my last practice jersey, and we'll get another one in the books. But for now, that's this one. Enjoy your week. Meow.